What's happening when you smoke DMT? Well, you're entering this hyperdimensional world filled with these super intelligent beings in this highly complex, constructed, inorganic space. Is there a possibility that we are somehow interacting with this type omega minus civilization? Is that what's going on here? That's the question for me, because I think to myself, how would we communicate with something, an intelligence like this? Well,
Right.
We can't send out radio signals. It seems like we can't do anything. But then I thought, well, the most obvious way for them to communicate with us, if they chose to, would be using our brains. Because, why? Because the brain, it can receive information directly, and it can use that information to construct a world. And so you can imagine us being able to, if the flow of information could be gated from this other domain that sits at the ground of our reality, that's everywhere right now, our brain could begin to construct a model of that reality. It would allow us to literally enter their world, experience their world, allowed our brain to construct a model of their world. So that's where I'm leaning towards. If we take these intelligences seriously that people meet in the DMT space, it seems to me it would be something like that, a world that is has a very close, for us, incomprehensible and ununderstandable relationship to our reality. That is where I think you might be finding, that's why I think DMT might grant access to this domain.
Quantum computers could perhaps help us to communicate with beings that are operating on atoms, right?
It's possible, but again, we're talking probably several layers lower
Than atoms.
Right? We don't really know. I mean, we call them certain things, particles, fundamental particles, but I think that's as fundamental as we can kind of grok,
Right.
as fundamental as we know. But actually, it could be many levels below that. We just don't understand the fundamental structure of reality. So there's the problem. We don't understand how these other realities or our relationship to these other post-biological domains where these type omega minus civilizations might reside. And so going back to what I said before, right, the DMT or other psychedelics, when they enter the brain, they create this hot state, this very fluid state where the brain is much more susceptible to incoming information. To be information-driven reorganization. So that would be precisely the state in which the brain would be susceptible to receiving information somehow. And I think it would be at the lowest level of reality. This information is coming in somehow into our brain. I don't think it's coming through the norm. It's not coming through the normal senses, certainly. This information is entering the brain and reorganizing. I always say, you don't break through into the DMT world. The DMT world breaks through into you. It is taking control of your world-building machinery and using your world-building machinery to construct its world. You're not going anywhere. You don't need to go anywhere. All that needs to happen is information must flow into your brain from their domain, and your brain, which is a world-building machine, as I said, will construct a model of their world.
Do you think people like Alan Hynek and Carrie Mullis could have the ability? Do you think there's certain people like them who could have the ability to tap into this without psychedelics?
Possibly, yeah. I'm not saying necessarily. I mean, DMT seems to be the most efficient. It seems to cause, unlike the other psychedelics, which create this, as I said, this fluid, hot state of the brain, with DMT, it seems to go past this. It transcends this state, and you get this sudden reorganization of the emergent patterns of activity in the cortex. And this seems to be, for reasons we don't understand, makes the brain even more susceptible to information-driven reorganization, if that's what's actually happened. Right? Of course, this is speculative. I'm not saying yes, when you take DMT, you're communicating with advanced post-biological civilizations instantiated in the ground of reality. I'm not saying that's true, but I'm trying to find the connection there. If we do take these entities seriously, and I think we need to. I don't think it's simple to explain their presence within the DMT state. I don't think it's simple. I don't think it's easy to simply explain them away as hallucinations or as archetypal structures from the collective unconscious. There seems to be something much more profound going on here. These beings, they have clear intent. When you go into the space, they're waiting for you. They get to work. Right? They get to work on you. They're expecting you. They welcome you, and they have an agenda. They have an agenda, and it seems to be far more than your brain just making it up. Your brain doesn't really, in my opinion at least, doesn't seem to have this ability to model these hyper-complex, hyper-dimensional realities filled with these beings that bear no relationship to anything in our world. So I think that we need to actually take seriously, and I say this as somebody who is something of a sober neuroscientist. I'm not one of these people who says, oh, it's the spirit world or it's the astral plane. I always avoid that because there's no explanation there for me. If you say, oh, you're going to the astral plane, I mean, well, what's the connection there? How does that work? What's the mechanics? So I'm looking for some kind of coherent explanation for what's going on. And I haven't found it in the orthodox paradigm of modern neuroscience at all. I've read the interpretations. I've read the explanations of the DMT state. It's hallucination. That doesn't make sense to me. These are far too complex. They're far too coherent to just be made up by the brain. But at the same time, I don't think that we can explain it in terms of archetypal structures as well. I think there's something completely non-human going on that has no relationship to either modern or ancestral humans. There's nothing in our evolutionary past, our historical past, that can explain why people are seeing these types of non-human, extremely advanced intelligences. So I think we have to start at least entertaining the idea that there's something far, far stranger going on.